flag. That's a flag. Awesome drive, man. Awesome drive.
It's nice to close out a race like that. That was awesome.
This is the Team Blaney Podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to 2023 season episode 25 of the Team Blaney Podcast. My name is Adam Rogers, and alongside me is co-host Steve Mez. As always, this podcast is brought to you by fans for fans. Steve and I have been following the drivers of the Blaney racing family for 2 decades, and Team Blaney itself launched on social media in 2014. Each weekly episode of the podcast offers an in-depth analysis of Ryan Blaney's latest NASCAR Cup Series race, plus news, notes, and a lineup of special guests all throughout the year. This week, we break down the number 12 team's run in the Crayon 301 at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Steve, as always, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. And our third straight week where it actually did rain, and rain delayed things. Fourth straight week where there's been at least a threat of rain in the NASCAR Cup Series. And we're hoping it was going to be another magical Blaney Monday at New Hampshire after the race was delayed. And things were setting up to make that happen. Car had a lot of speed this weekend.
It's amazing how there's 2 Monday guys that they talked about ahead of time. Well, they mainly talked about the other one, and he did it. He pulled it off. But there's actually another Monday guy who's right behind him on Monday wins. Otherwise, I mean, the weekend went really, really well till it didn't. And we'll get into it, I'm sure, a little bit. But they were coming out firing, and the practice and the qualifying and everything were really, really, really good. And I'm glad they didn't actually, I kind of was teasing people online about the wet weather tires, and knowing that they weren't going to, because the rain was just too much rain. But I'm glad they didn't do that, because whatever setup you have for the car is generally under dry conditions. So wet conditions, who knows what would have happened? I'm sure they would have started up front, but then what would have happened? Maybe you slip in a turn or something a little bit, or don't find enough moisture to run in, and then what? So that's why that it would have been interesting to see, just because they haven't really done a lot of oval yet with the wet weather stuff, but the road courses are the only real place for the wet weather tires, really, I think. So.
Now, I made a joke on Twitter with you about my thoughts on the race. I wanted to get some quick reactions on how you think the race went overall, because I listed my points on why I thought that it was a good race, and I brought up my classic. I bet you it's one of those races that if you were there in person, you'd come away thinking it was a really, really good race. And I think my points were that there was multi-groove racing in New Hampshire, which we don't usually see. There was a lot of comers and goers. There was a lot of pit strategy, and I called it interesting, and split pit strategy between 2 tires and no tires and 4 tires, and the Suarez car stayed out like forever, trying to catch a caution that they actually eventually did. I said really the only thing that we were missing was a pass for the lead. There's a few battles for the lead and some drama at the end. So that's kind of the way I came away with it, because, this is a track that we don't always see multi-groove racing. And you saw guys running at least 3 different lines in this race. And I thought that it might result in something that, like I said, a classic, if you're at the race, you probably thought it was a really great race kind of race. So that was my thoughts on it. And I know you're going to disagree with me, and that's okay.
It's all right.
Yeah.
Agree to disagree. Well, you hit the nail on the head. If you were there, it had to be awesome. From listening to, and mind you, we're at work on Monday. So
that's true. A
little bit harder to watch, although I was able to here and there when I had a chance to stop from what I was doing and look at my thing, phone. I could, but I definitely had the scanner on the whole time. The grooves that you're talking about were about within a half a lane of each other. So passing was not that easy to do.
Hey, Ryan passed on the outside on the first run there.
He did one.
So there you go. I said multi-groove. I didn't say how far apart they were.
Yeah, that's true. You did say that. Multi-groove, but he didn't say they were in different lanes. So yeah, it was a lot of that where, but Ryan was one of those cars when we talk about these types of things where Maybe 2 or 3 cars have totally hit on it. Of course, the 19 was one of them, but Ryan was also one of them where he may have been 2 to 3 tenths faster than other guys. And when you're that much faster, you can make some moves.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it got to be that, I'm behind you, I'm in dirty air, I get within 2 tenths. If you run the same line, I can't get around you, kind of thing. And that was like that for the top 5 or top 6. You're right. In through the field, there was probably some passing through the field. Tire fall off was interesting because they had this new tire and it really did not fall off. And the reason I say that is because some guys took 2 tires later on and it worked. Usually if somebody gambles on the 2 tires to get the track position, they get run over. If there's that much fall off. But if the fall off isn't that great, and sometimes they can maintain, and it did. They were able to hold their position. Some of the guys that took 2 at different points in time. So, the new tire really didn't help them the way they thought it would. They were hoping for more fall off. And talking, actually, I think I'd actually asked Jonathan last week about that, and he had told me that they didn't expect it to be a big fall off, and it wasn't.
Yeah, I saw some posts from crew chiefs, specifically like Rodney Childers, who said he thought it was a step in the right direction and that they should bring the same tire to Phoenix and to Richmond. I don't know if there's enough turnaround time to bring it to Richmond, but I think it's a step in the right direction. It was better than the tire that was there previously. I think it helped the racing. It helped open up the more than the lane and a half, or however you want to choose it. I mean, some of that racing was really also how guys arced it into the corner, but right. But yeah. I did luckily get to see a lot of the race on TV throughout the day, despite being a work day. But it was there, and like I said, if you were in the stands, if you were one of those people that stuck it out, stuck the rain delay out, won. Thanks for doing that. Mm-hmm. And I think they did get to see a pretty decent race. And I was saying, I wasn't sure what the Jeff Gluck poll was going to be, and I think I checked it about an hour or so ago, and it was a little bit higher than I thought. It was like at 66%. So I think that's actually pretty high for an MTJ dominated race, because usually those ones aren't super exciting.
Yeah, I mean, you point out the big thing when you're looking at these races, how they're passes for the lead, and this one really didn't have, but the dominant car won. So on the other hand, something you really want to see is if you've got the best car, and Ryan was one of the best cars. If you got the best car, does the best car win that day? Or does something goofy happen? A lot of people like the chaos, they like the chaos and some strategies, some fuel strategies, and somebody wins who they didn't expect or something like that. But this one here was just an old fashioned butt whooping. Even when other people did things for track position, it didn't matter. The 19 was coming, and once he got to you, that was over. So, kudos to him,
Sure. Yeah. It's funny how, just a year ago, everybody thought he was going to walk away. They thought, they're criticizing the way he and his crew chief interact with each other. And I think we're seeing that sometimes something that's different actually works. Something that you think might be a problem actually works. And those 2 guys bicker back and forth and get a little bit heated sometimes. They call each other out. And hey, they've won 3 races this year. So
it's a clashing of personalities, the way they some guys are more businesslike and some guys aren't, I guess. But
yeah, so their dominance wasn't just on Sunday or on Monday. Gosh, I should say. It actually showed up a little bit in practice and qualifying. So why don't we go there and not just talk about the 19's dominance, but the fact that you could kind of see some glimpses there that the 12 car was going to have a good weekend from the speed standpoint.
Yeah, so we got Saturday's practice. Ryan was in Group B actually, but in Group A at one point the 34 set the fastest lap. So right away I'm like, whoa, something interesting's going on here. But the 19 had the best 10 lap average in Group A. The 8 just hit the wall. They're really hit and miss on the Childress cars right now. He had a horrible weekend after that. Ryan and Josh are on the radio when Ryan does get in the car here, discussing where the people are running in Group A, mostly in lane 2. No one really gets down into lane 1. And during the race, like some of the race stuff, I didn't write it in my report, but that's what we were talking about, how they arc it into that into the turn and out of the turn in 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. Like, they're mainly in lane 2, most of these guys, but some are going to put their tires a little bit outside that lane coming in, or inside of it coming out. But Group B comes around. Ryan, it takes a second or two for him to start running, because he had to reset his wheel as he was coming out. So he let a bunch of cars go after him, which kind of screws up your speed when you're, because usually these guys launch off pit road and have a spot already and run a lap, and put down a good lap right off the bat. But so he was actually P11 after his first lap, but then up to like P2 right away, after he runs a couple. Settles into about P6 there, only a 1/10 back at the 20. So that's pretty good, because the 20 looks strong. But if you combined here's the funny thing is, we combine all the times, because TV on NBC kept them separate. Fox was putting them together. The app puts them together, but because TV was doing them separate, it was kind of cool because it showed the 20 up there. But when you looked on the app, the NASCAR app, he was only P10 with both groups combined. And that's kind of weird that the second group was slower, even though there's some rubber on the track. Maybe the sun had come out a little bit. Ryan would have been like 16th with all of them combined. They halfway into the session, they bring it in. They had run 14 laps here. 7 minutes to go, they come back out. And 4 minutes to go, Jonathan says, "Hey, we could get one more change in real quick if you want." And he comes and brings it in. They'd run about 20 laps at this point. They come back out with like 1:20 left. Ryan's P7 in Group B would have been 17th overall with the combined groups. The 20 car was P1, but like I said, would have been 10th overall combined groups. They go to qualifying Group A. The top 5 ends up being the 5, the 19. I'm sorry, top 5 ends up being the 19, the 6, 23, 45, and the 8. The 34 ended up being 6th fastest. So even though he showed great speed earlier, it came time to qualify. They fell off just a little bit, or maybe he missed the lap. I don't know. The range times was 30.375 down to 30.586 from first to fifth. And I kind of wanted to put that together, kind of let people see that's, only a 10th to 2/10, in between those. We get to Group B. Ryan was going out 17th out of 18 cars. So he had time to watch some other ones. And once he gets in, he's discussing with Josh about Joey's lap, because, he wanted to know what Joey's lap was like. Ryan goes out there and goes to P4 with one guy to go. So it ends up being the 22, the 10, the 20, the 24, and then the 12. And in their grouping, it was 30.318 to 30.4668. So now their lap times were pretty close, if not faster than some of the guys in Group A. And that was going to be interesting once they go for the pole here. Like he would have been P2 in Group A his time. I kind of wrote that in there too. So they're going out for the pole here. If the 8 spins it out and hits the wall in pole qualifying. But the 20 ends up with the pole. Ryan ends up P5, and I've got Ryan had was the 6th best 10-lap average during practice too. So kind of promising for the race. They didn't run anything longer than that. Most of the guys didn't run anything longer than that in practice. So interesting, on Sunday when they rained out, it was before even 11 a.m. that they announced it, which was kind of nice that they gave everybody more than enough time. But the rain was just so bad, so much. And
honestly, it wasn't even all like they were showing, like people were posting video and stuff on Twitter of people they were actually leaving the track area with roads were flooded, and it just didn't look like it was a good thing. The forecast made it seem like the rain actually might stop around 2:30, which would have given them the opportunity to put on your wet weather tires. Yeah, in reality, when race time came around, it was still raining. So it was a good call.
Follow on TikTok, follow Janman33. He's one of the guys that drives the one of the Elgins. And and he posted a video. Usually his videos is from the track, showing you this or that. This one was heading back to the hotel, and he was on a road. And if he pointed the camera down the right-hand side of the road, and there was a river basically running down the road, and chunks of the road were washing away, like literally chunks of the asphalt. If you went over, there's like 3 and 4 foot sections of asphalt on the side of the road that had washed off. So that's how much rain they were getting. And we know that Vermont got tons of rain because they already moved the SRX race for this week because of that. So we go to Monday, 12 noon, stages of 70, 185, and 301, and your favorite competition caution at lap 30. 8 sets of tires, a fuel run of 87 to 94 laps.
You know what, though? You're going to get to it, but they didn't need that dang old competition caution anyway. So take that. Take that, NASCAR.
Take that. We'll wreck for it anyway. Fuel run of 87 to 94 laps. Pit stall 32, which was an opening in front of him and the one car behind him. By lap 2, the 19 had passed the 20 for the lead. And so there's your big pass for the lead. Ryan is up to fifth, stays in fifth, basically. Lap 29, we get a caution for the 16, and this becomes the competition caution. So thank you, AJ. 4 tires, they go in fifth, come out ninth. Now, once again, pit stop was actually pretty good. I don't know, these stops, most of them were around the 10-second or below 10-second range from the four tire stops. But here's what actually happens. The 47 stays out. He's going to try something fun. And the 24, the 11, and the 34 take 2 tires. So there's your position changes. And let's see how it works out for them. Restart lap 34. The 24 ends up taking the lead, and the 19 moves his way all the way up to second around all those guys. And let's see here. By lap 45, the 19 takes the lead. And Ryan was up to P6 at this point. Lap 58, Ryan gets to P5. Lap 70, we get to the end of the stage. 19 wins the stage. Ryan's P5. They pit here at the stage break. 4 tires, fuel goes in fifth, comes out fifth. We get our restart lap 78, the 19 leading, Ryan in fifth. By lap 90, Ryan does get to fourth, so he makes one pass in there. And then we don't really have any action until lap 127, where the green flag stops start. At lap 130 is when Ryan hits. And this is, like I said, it's a sub 10 stop. By lap 149, the 19's in first and Ryan is in fourth as they've cycled all the way through. Lap 164, we get a caution for the 43. Another sub 10-second stop. They go in fourth, out seventh. But once again, we got the 10, the 5, and the 22 taking 2 tires here, moving their position up. Restarting at lap 169, and then the 10 has the loose wheel.
Yeah, the 10 really took 1.5 tires.
Yeah, oops. Issue for him, and issue for, he had a fast car too. He was another one of the guys that could have been one of the 4 or 5 that was up near the front all day and challenging the 19. But
unfortunate part there where we'll talk about some miscommunication or bad communication or something when it has to do with pits is the 10 car driver there, Almirola, told the crew chief, something didn't feel right. He's moving back and forth before the restart, and he's like, maybe it's fine. And he asks, like, are the wheels tight? And the crew chief says, yes, wheels are tight. And then he goes into that turn, the wheel starts to come off, he crashes, and he says, something broke. What was it? And he goes, rear tire. What happened? How's that possible? Wasn't tight. So it's just, I know it's so difficult to make the decision at a place like that where track position means a lot to come in and double check and make sure it's tight. But, you think we had a bad day. They had one of their few shots of the year where, this is a track where clearly from the old car to the new car, it's one of those tracks that, Almirola knows how to race, and he completely lost his opportunity at, one of his few opportunities to win each year. So unfortunate for them, but so he took 1.5 tires on that one, and it did not work out. We restart lap 175. The 5 is leading, and Ryan is up
P6. But lap 179, though, the 19 takes the lead, and Ryan is all the way to fourth. Lap 185 here at the end of the stage. 19 wins stage. Ryan is P4. So P5, P4. So stage points, really good to have those stage points, and with what ends up happening, really good also. Everybody pretty much stays out here. And the restart lap 192 with the 19 on the outside, the 22 on the inside. And I believe Ryan was on the outside here of the second row because he, within the lap, passes the 22, gets to second. And they run that way for a long time. Ryan really is within a tenth of a second on the lap times during most of this. There are a couple laps where he actually runs a faster lap, gains a little bit of ground, but it's usually he's within a half a second this whole time that he runs first and second with him. We get at lap 236, Ryan pits. Green flag cycle starts here. Ryan pits, and the 19 pits the next lap. Now, couple things here on this one. You try to pit a lap or two earlier than the other guy, hoping that you get back out there and you run a little bit of faster lap, so you get one or two extra laps quicker than him. The problem is there were a lot of traffic on this during this cycle. When the 19 does get back out there in front of Ryan, there's a couple cars between them, and Ryan ends up having to lose ground because he's got to go around these guys to get back to the 19 here. By lap 257, the 3-car finally pits because he stayed out way long trying to hope that something would happen for him. And this puts the 19 in the lead again, and Ryan chasing him in second again, kind of like back to where they were. At lap 271, we get a caution for the 42. And this is where this happens. And, we've seen it. I've watched the replay a bunch of times now that I got home, got a chance to watch it. I'm just going to chalk it up to some real bad miscommunication, because of those of you who listen to this, and I know a bunch of people listen to Scanners now, heard that, said something about being told a couple different things. And, some people say you're supposed to do it this way. Some people say you're supposed to do it that way. I don't really want to get into it, because here's the thing is that, since Ryan Flores has come back to the team, Ryan is on Flores is on a podcast of his own with Corey LaJoy. It's called Stacking Pennies. It usually comes out I think Thursday afternoon. Usually, I don't know this week because they're a week later. Or a day later. I don't know, but I suggest just go to there. If he wants to talk about it, he's going to talk about it. If he wants to explain it, he will explain it. He has talked about things that have happened this year, last year, and owned it if it was him. You're going to hear why. If he's going to explain it, you're going to hear why. I wasn't going to dig and ask a lot of questions of anybody, because it's a situation that they're going to fix it. Whatever it is, you're going to fix it. A 2-tire stop is something totally different, totally rare. And in this situation, it didn't work out. That hose was still there. Flores couldn't get himself back around the front of the car, and that's, it ends up being a penalty. They come back in. Only thing I heard on the radio at that point was to come back. When they do come back in, they were going to put the right side, or put the left sides on, and make sure the right sides were tight. So they may not have thought they hit the lugs. They didn't say front or rear. They just said the right side. So who knows with all that? Like I said, Stacking Pennies comes out Thursday. It's a great podcast, actually. Corey LaJoy is fun to listen to. But they have a segment called Pit Road, Boats and Woes, and Ryan will talk about it if he wants to. If he doesn't, he doesn't. I mean, it might be something they want to just keep in-house and work on it, But these guys, once again, these are the same guys that won the 600. Okay, the 8, 10, 12 pit stops they made that's Monday night. So, I'm just tired of that part of it. I can't yell at everybody because you don't know what happened. You don't know what guy. I've seen 3 different things. Just let's try to move on from it. Try to learn from it. Try not to let it happen again. Get to a situation later in the year, and these guys, are going to hopefully improve and change. That's the other thing. They're always changing the way they do things. They're always improving the way they do things. And this was a learning experience, Hopefully just take something from it, move on, and
Yeah. The only thing I'll really say, the social media reaction was interesting because blame was thrown in like 100 different directions. They're like, "Oh, wait, is the jack man threw the jack down too fast?" Oh, the one fun one that I saw from a few people were, "Why did Flores? Why didn't he just stay where he was?" I'm like, well, he could have, and he basically did, and that's why the hose got ran over. He has to bring the hose back across the wall
Mhm.
for it to be a legal stop. So that it was interesting to me to see that. Why didn't he just stay where he was? They would have been fine. And like, no, that's not how that works. I
No.
heard, the crew chief told him to go, so he went, or Ryan just went on his own. So what that tells me is that it may have just been a series of unfortunate events,
Mhm.
and in the end, it's unfortunate for the team. You can't win races that way. There's no way to sugarcoat that. And
Mhm.
there was some communication at the end from the driver, and at the end on social media from the crew chief that says they're going to address it. So
Yeah, they'll work on it.
we're not experts. We try to gather as much information as we can possible. I agree with Steve. Let's hear what Ryan Flores has to say. He's addressed, I would say, 80% of the mistakes that they've had in the past that
Mhm.
he's been involved in. He's talked about it. So let's wait and see what he has to say. But regardless of the reason, regardless of who made the mistake, it was a mistake. It cost them a chance at a good finish, and there's really no other way to explain it except for focus forward. And I know we still have a little bit more to talk about in the
Yeah.
race, when I think there's one more unfortunate event that happens before this thing finishes out. So
Yeah, I mean, you can't go to the pit school or pit crew store and buy a new crew guy right now.
no.
There's really no there's nothing out there that you no value guys that you're going to go buy at the pit crew store. So you got to do what you can with what you have and get better and improve. And I'm sure that's all they did. We're recording this Tuesday night, and I'm sure that's what they did Tuesday, and that's what they're going to work on Wednesday, and they'll work on it again Thursday, and the next time they're in this situation, they'll work on it. So yeah, we get a restart lap 278, and I think it's 25th, but this is tail end of the longest line too, because the penalty, so you're behind the lappers too, which kind of like really sucks, because sometimes the lappers will lay over. Some guys will just lay over because don't want to get run over, but other times, you kind of got to fight your way around them here. But they restart and only run a couple laps because we get a caution lap 280 for the 48. So he's up to 23rd. So he passed a couple cars. Now, when he restarts this next restart, he'll be with the cars he's racing with too. We restart lap 286 here in 23rd, and then we get a caution at 289 for the 20. And this is not, it happens after that, right? Where he gets, because the restart lap 293, and he seems to have worked his way up to about 16th, I think, at this point during all this. But there's a melee of what'd you say? It was the 47 hitting.
The 47, the 12, and the 54 were all racing for position. I brought up the multi grooves; they were all kind of in a different lane there, but the 47. Yeah, so on the plus side, Ryan had worked his way back up. I think he probably would have finished in the top 15 if this didn't happen, which would have been a fairly decent way to salvage the run that they were having, especially thanks to those last couple cautions that got him back in position to race with the cars he should be racing against. But unfortunately, the 47 had some other thoughts, and he runs into the back of Ryan. Ryan goes sideways. Ryan goes into the 54, and it actually corrects the car a little bit for Ryan. I think it saves him from going into the wall. So if you saw on TV, we saw the last second of this, and that was just the 54 going up into the wall. So Ty Gibbs goes into the wall. They thought maybe there was going to be a caution, but immediately Ryan drops from 16th or 17th back to 20 plus, and it's just as I said, it's just one more unfortunate thing to happen at the end of this. Adding insult to injury is the fact that he'd almost rebounded enough to maybe get a decent top 15 finish, to gather back up some points that he lost by going back to the back because of the pit incident. But just kind of gets taken out in the back.
Yeah.
I mean, it seemed unnecessary. I know the 47's aggressive, and they're fighting for points too. I mean, they're in the playoffs. They won the Daytona 500, but they still want to get as many points as possible. So it was the TV didn't show it. I think Peacock eventually showed it in their post race, but they or USA, I guess. I don't think it ever went to Peacock, but they showed it in the post race, so it wasn't shown during the actual race, but they kind of went back to it. So if you stayed tuned in till after the race was over, you would have caught a glimpse of this, but I haven't seen any other videos of it go up on social media. So I saw a lot of people asking questions like how, they saw Ryan was coming back to the front. Like they said, what the heck happened? It's like, well, the 47 and 54 happened.
Yeah. So 19 ends up winning. Ryan ends up 22nd. I usually wait till, Tuesday is when Monday or Tuesday, Ryan will put a little quote out. So he put one out today. He said, obviously a frustrating end to what looked to be a really solid day for us. I felt like we were one of the few cars that really had a shot at running down Truex. Unfortunately, we picked fortunately, we picked up some stage points early on, but definitely not the way I saw our day ending up. So I kind of I've said this before about when he puts out his quote, just kind of follow his lead on that. We're not going to sit here, play the blame game. Like I said, these are hardworking guys trying to help the team win, and nobody tries to make a mistake. You got to remember that nobody's trying to make a mistake, but you let it all hang out and you try to make a play, and it just didn't work out. Hopefully they're just working on fixing it, which they are. So let's move on. Let's get ourselves, Pocono coming up this week, and we love Pocono.
Yeah. One last thing. Crew Chief Jonathan Hassler made a statement on Twitter as well an hour or two after the race ended. He said, certainly made some mistakes today that took us out of contention for the win. I take responsibility for what we did as well as how we will respond. And I kind of feel like as the leader of that team, alongside Ryan, that was that he didn't have to do this. He didn't have to make this public. But I think he thought he owed it to all of you guys that are listening out there. And he owed it to Ryan too, just to kind of stand up, fall on the sword, but also take ownership of how they're going to respond and correct this going in the future. So like you said, we can focus forward on Pocono. We did lose a little bit of ground in the NASCAR Cup Series standings on points. Ryan didn't move position-wise when it comes to the overall point standings. He's still in the 7th position, but he is now 86 points behind the leader, who is Martin Truex Jr. now. He overtook William Byron for the lead. Byron didn't have that great of a day. So last week, I think Ryan was at minus 75. Now he's at minus 86. The top 10 in the Cup Series driver standings are as follows: Truex, Byron, Bell, Hamlin, Kyle Busch, Ross Chastain, Blaney, Larson, Harvick, and teammate Joey Logano rounds out the top 10. So that's where we are in the standings. Didn't lose anything as far as positions go. Did lose about 11 points, though, to the leader. But we are in luck because we are headed this week now. It's a short week, but we are headed to Pocono Raceway in Pennsylvania. If you want to tune into the action, I'll give you a quick NASCAR on TV report for Pocono. Everything starts on Saturday as far as the races go. There is some practice and qualifying for Xfinity and trucks on Friday, and I think an ARCA race as well. But Saturday, July 22nd at noon, you can catch the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series, CRC Brake Lean 150. On FS1 at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, you can catch the NASCAR Cup Series practice and qualifying at Pocono. And then followed by that, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time, the NASCAR Xfinity Series Pocono 225. And then the big race is happening on Sunday, July 23rd, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, the NASCAR Cup Series highpoint.com 400. Pocono is, and we bring this up our last a few years, is a special place for Blaney fans. It's a special place for Blaney fans to meet because you can tell the story when I'm done giving some stats here, but Ryan does have 1 win, 2 top 5s, 6 top 10s, and 13 starts. He has an average start of 14th and an average finish of 13.1. His last handful of starts here, going back to 2018, 5th, 6th, And then unfortunately last year he was involved in a crash and finished 33rd. But he does have that win 2017 where he dueled, was it Kevin Harvick at the finish
Kevin
of that
Harvick.
race?
Kevin Harvick raced him clean.
Very clean.
Mhm.
And Ryan held him off, much like a lot of Ryan's first wins in the various series. I remember him, beating Kyle Busch at Bristol. Seemed like not a lot of Ryan wins come easy, and that definitely wasn't one of them. It was nerve-wracking all the way down to the end, all the way until he hit the checker flag. But as I said, it's a special place for Blaney fans. It's, I don't know, I think between Pocono and Michigan, this might be Ryan's family type of home track. Obviously, Charlotte is really closer to where he really truly grew up, but the Blaney family is from Northeast Ohio. So I would say a split between Michigan and Pocono are kind of maybe a home tracks for especially the core Blaney fans that have been following the family a long time. So we like going back to Pocono, unique track, unique layout, and sometimes Blaney fans meet up and end up married.
Yes. It's it can happen. It can and will happen. Yeah, it's on the Tricky Chronicles. If you go to the old Pocono website, Pocono, it's a love story, is what Pocono style is what it's called. Because they actually contacted us and did a little video talking about how we met. We met at the will call window. We both won tickets for a Dave race. Actually, when Dave was with Tommy Baldwin, they did a little contest, and wear your NASCAR gear. They took, put your picture online, and they picked, I don't know, it was 8 or 10 or 12 winners, however many tickets they had. And standing at that will call window, there were a lot of people who won through Baldwin's thing, but there were only 2 of us standing there that were wearing Dave's stuff. So, of course, we started talking, and it's been a fabulous, wild, great ride ever since. We did not date right away, but we definitely knew later on that it was a great moment.
And the rest was history.
That's it.
Speaking of things being history, my fantasy team is history because I just do not think I'm going to be able to compete because I'll go through my lineup here, and my lineup is going to sound really good except for some really bad things happen to some of these folks in here. So my lineup that I had for this past week at New Hampshire, Eric Almirola got me 10 points, but qualified really well, was running really well until that pit incident. Ryan Blaney, started him, got me 28 points. Again, probably could have been a lot more than that. Unfortunate issue that they had on the pit stop. Christopher Bell started on the pole, ran really strong, and also ran really, really strong into the wall at the end of that race. Got me 14 points. Martin Truex Jr. had the winner, got me 60 points. That's a big haul. He swept the stages, won the race. So he earned the most points on the day. Not surprising. Bubba Wallace had an up and down day, but ended up with 29 points. And I left Joey Logano in the garage. I was back and forth on bringing Bubba in or out. So even if I did that, I mean, maybe I probably should have taken Almirola out, but I wasn't confident that Joey was going to stay up there. I didn't think they had the car at the time, but hey, guess what he did? He ended up leaving 45 points in the garage. For my featured matchups, I picked Byron over Elliott. That was wrong. I picked Hamlin over Kyle Busch. That was right. I picked Logano over Chastain. That was right. And I picked Truex over Reddick. That was right. So, man, I had a lot. Every single person in my lineup had a really strong day going at one point or another, and just didn't seal the deal. So I think I ended up 49th overall in points earned for the weekend. So what did your lineup look like? Because I don't think you did.
Oh man,
much better.
I did a little better, but not much. And I had Larson, Bell, Elliott, Truex, and Chastain, and Logano in the garage. And the Logano thing, once again, I was at work, so it was kind of tough to keep track of it. But if I would have looked at it, is about a 30. Let's see, there's 2 different guys that were 14 points. So it would have been a 31 point jump for me if I had pulled one of those guys. So if I add 31 points,
could have been top 10.
That would have been top 10. It would have been right around 6th or 7th. So, Yeah. One thing makes that whole thing. And I got 3 of the 4 matchups correct. I had Chase over William. I had Denny over Kyle. I had Ross, I'm sorry, and Joey beat him. And then I had Truex over Reddick. So, the lineup wasn't bad for setting it. When did I set it? On Wednesday or last week or Tuesday last week? So, I'll have to look at this week and see if they've got that set up, because last week they had it already ready to go where you could go ahead and plug in the week's stuff. But our top 10 had a really interesting person on the top there, didn't it?
It did. So I ended up 49th with 171 points earned. You ended up in the 40th position with 186 points earned. And now we'll go into the top 10 in points earned from this past week at New Hampshire in the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League. In a tie for 9th, we have Moose Hunter 1960 and Matt O with 215 points. In 8th, we have Eric D15 with 216. In 7th, we have Alyssa C with 217. In 6th, we have Cheesehead Fan with 220. In 5th, we have Blaney Kicks Beep with 222. In 4th, we have Stella Narius, so Nicole did well, 224 points. In 3rd, we have Abby NNK with 235. In 2nd, we have Bulldog 0277 and 238. And in the first position, I don't think this is the first time. I think it's happened before in the last couple of years. But Rogers T, 248 points earned, wins the day at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. That is my better half, Tara, comes home with the victory at New Hampshire. And I heard about it. I heard about it when it happened. I heard about it a couple hours later. I think I heard about it today. So
awesome.
It is well known that someone won and somebody lost in this house. And quite honestly, she week to week beats me pretty consistently.
What was her lineup like? Let me see.
I don't even know. I should have found out, but she actually every person in her starting 5 finished in the top 10 at least. And then I think she may have swept the featured matchups as well. But yeah, 248 points earned. So that was a pretty substantial amount over what we earned for the week. So congratulations to her.
Here you go. She had Reddick, she had Truex, she had Logano, she had Larson. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 in points ranking. She had Bubba Wallace, who ended up 8th best in points. Christopher Bell was in the garage.
I remember when she made that swap, so that was smart.
Yeah, she had Chase over William. She had Denny over Kyle. She had Joey over Chastain. And the only one she got wrong is Reddick. She had Reddick over Truex. She could have had 10 more points.
Yep.
So awesome. Good job, Tara.
So good for her. I'm gonna have to get some tips from her going on. Scrolling through the overall standings, I see some fantastic news here that we're gonna get to in a few seconds.
That's not fantastic. Come on now.
In the 39th position overall, Team Blaney host Adam, 39th with 3,517 points. And this is great news. In the 11th position, how the mighty have fallen. Mez 12, 3,737 points. You have fallen outside of the top 10 in the overall standings. And
oh man,
what a great week. My wife wins last week, wins the week in fantasy, and you fall out of the top 10. I can't ask for more. 10th position, Abby NNK, 3,755. 9th, Alyssa C, 3,791. 8th, Blaring Idiots, 3,819. 7th, Go Larson, 3,832. 6th, Eric D15, 3,836. And 5th, Penske Fan 24, 3,837. And 4th, No Hesitation, 3,846. Christian Dana in 3rd, 3,867. 2nd, Blaney's Daisy, 3,880. And pulling away here a little bit, we have Factory of Sadness 6 in the first position overall in the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League standings, 3,949 points. So I will say I thought my wife was outperforming me every week, but she is actually in the 47th position. So I do have a handful of positions over her in the standing. So I'll remind her of that a little bit later, that you may have won this week, but I'm going to win the war. So
all right,
we'll see how this goes. So I know we talked about Pocono a little bit there. right before we did this fantasy recap. I mentioned the fact that, Ryan's pretty decent there, average finish of 13th. I think you've used up all your usages of Ryan there, and I think I might have only 2 or 3 left to go. There's 6 races left to go in the regular season before things reset. I'm probably going to put Ryan in the garage unless he qualifies really, really well. It remains to be seen. And this track, it's just a little bit different. Really long straightaways, 3 turns that are very different. And sometimes when the crew chiefs are going up to set up the car, they have to maybe focus on one turn over another. So you're not always going to be really good in each one of those. So practice and qualifying this week are going to be something you're going to want to watch, especially when it comes to setting your fantasy lineup. But straight out of the gate, anybody come to mind that you are looking at for this race? And I can even pull up the last several winners too, if we want to talk about that.
Oh man,
you might want to consider some going through this.
Kevin Harvick.
He's a possibility, but let's take a look at these winners since Ryan Blaney's first Cup Series win in 2017. So I'm going to start there.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And you have to remember that for a while here, for the majority of its time, Pocono did have 2 races. So it wasn't until 2022 that they went down to 1. So 2017, so I'll start there in the spring race, 2017, Ryan Blaney wins, then Kyle Busch, then Martin Truex Jr., then Kyle Busch, then Kyle Busch, then Denny Hamlin, then Kevin Harvick, then Denny Hamlin, then Alex Bowman, then Kyle Busch, and then Chase Elliott won the race last year in 2022. I know Kyle Busch had a really rough weekend at New Hampshire, but I think the way that the RCR cars are, I know they've been up and down all year, but outside of this New Hampshire race, Kyle has found a way to run in the top 10. I think prior to this race, he had 7 or 8 top 10s in a row. If they put a decent car under Kyle Busch, he knows how to race at this Pocono track. And I'm fairly certain, unless their practice and qualifying is catastrophic, much like it was this past week when he crashed in his lap. I would not hesitate to put Kyle Busch in my lineup.
Yeah, I go with that. Toyotas have seemed to gain on Hendrick. I say Toyotas because it is the Gibbs, but it's also the 2311 cars. And I could see Bubba running really well here. Reddick, is due for one of those races where he kind of dominates a race. Really be interesting to see how the Fords do in practice and qualifying. To tell you the truth, I'm not as confident. This track is really, really weird because it has that turn, turn 1 and being like a super speedway kind of turn, and then you get to the tunnel turn in the back there, and then the flatness of turn 3. Just there, you're right. There's so many different ways to try to set the car up and to get it to do things, and just hopefully you don't have anything bad happen coming out of 3.
One thing to mention with this race, I mentioned Chase Elliott won last year, but if you go back and look at the results, have to remember that Denny Hamlin and Kyle Busch actually crossed the finish line 1 and 2. So Hamlin and Kyle Busch were some of the names that have won multiple Pocono races over the last 10 years. So they actually finished 1 and 2 last year. They were disqualified for having that piece of tape underneath the car's wrap on the hood, on the nose of the car. So keep in mind that that those two ran really, really strong last year. It remains to be seen whether that little, elevated area under the nose actually gave them any more speed or downforce than anybody else. I suspect that they were going to be good there no matter what. So, but I think that was the first time that a Cup Series driver had been disqualified from winning in forever. So hasn't happened since then. So, but keep that in mind. Denny Hamlin and Kyle Busch did run 1 and 2. The race was handed over to Chase Elliott after those 2 cars failed post-race inspection. So that even just solidifies my pick of wanting to put Kyle Busch up front. Though, as you said, Toyotas have been great. Kyle Busch is not going to be in a Toyota this year.
Yeah. So Denny Hamlin actually is one of the ones that would be, our little redemption story here. And they definitely can do it. So he's one of those guys that can handle the 3 different turns, and that's shifting too is a big thing with this track. When they do shift and downshift and so forth. So, and then the engine's just being revved the whole time. Pit strategies become very interesting. because you've got where you can pit and not lose a lap.
Yeah.
So you'll see some of these teams may pit early in a stage and hopefully cycle through and then, be in better position at the end of the stage. So there's some very interesting things that are going to happen this weekend. Should be fun to watch.
So again, if you want to tune in for just the Cup Series programming, it starts on Saturday, July 22nd, 3 p.m. Eastern Time is NASCAR Cup Series practice and qualifying on USA. And then Sunday, July 23rd, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, the NASCAR Cup Series High Point 400 at Pocono Raceway, also on the USA Network. I don't think we have much more to talk about this week. As we're recording, the Don Martin Memorial Silver Cup's happening at Lernerville Speedway, back home in the north or in the western Pennsylvania area there. I know Dale Blaney's running out there for that race, so we might have an update on that when we come back around next week. If I haven't mentioned it already, it's really great to see Dale back behind the wheel of a sprint car, kind of full-time in 2023, so wish him well. Hopefully he gets into the feature and makes some noise over there in Lernerville. But for now, I think that pretty much wraps it up for this week's episode. So I want to thank everybody once again for tuning into the episode of the Team Blaney podcast. If you'd like to learn more about myself or co-host Steve, just listen to our very first episode that explores our Blaney racing fandom. You can interact with us on Facebook and Twitter at Team Blaney, and on Instagram, Threads, and on TikTok at team.blaney. So all the socials you can find us on there, and a little bit different content from social platform to social platform. So be sure to follow us on all of those. And finally, we'd like to encourage you to support the Ryan Blaney Family Foundation. Established in 2018, this organization supports causes like the Alzheimer's Association and UPMC Sports Medicine through fundraisers, events, and membership in the Blaney Bunch fan club. To learn more, visit ryanblaneyfamilyfoundation.org or follow them on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And it's worth noting that they've put up some new merchandise on the Ryan Blaney Family Foundation's Shopify shop, including the 2023 Lou Blaney Memorial shirts, which I think look awesome and retro and vintage. Features one of Lou's really old sprint cars and one of his classic modifieds that he ran in the 90s and early 2000s. So check that out. It's a really cool shirt, and they have some sale items on the website as well. So always a great opportunity to get some Blaney swag that also supports a really good cause in the Ryan Blaney Family Foundation. So for my co-host Steve, I'm Adam Rogers. We'll catch you next time right here on the Team Blaney podcast.
Good night, Brussels. Check out the TikTok.
Well, thanks everybody for coming. I hope you enjoyed it.